kids, welcome back to Topper channel. This is Bhavesh Kriplani, your physics faculty, and this is your second lecture in the very important JEE 2022 crash course. Right. So I hope you learned a lot in the first lecture and you're much excited about the second lecture. Right. So in the first lecture we have discussed electric field and electric potential due to different kinds of shapes, different types of charge distributions. Right. Now we will be discussing electric dipole and Gauss law. Okay, this is the focus in our today's lecture. So let's first of all start with the electric dipoles. All of you know what is an electric dipole, right? So dipole, the word dipole can be divided into two parts, right? First we have got di, which means two, and pole means what? Ends. So dipole means something with two different ends. Okay, so in case of an electric dipole, what do we have? Here we have a negative charge and here we have a positive charge. So the two ends are different. That's why this is a dipole. Alright. Now dipole has got dipole moment, right? This is negative q charge, this is plus q charge. So the dipole moment can be defined by P equal to QD. All of you know this formula, right? But one more thing is there, that the dipole is a vector. So the dipole moment is also a vector quantity, and this vector quantity is given by the formula P vector equal to Q times D vector. The dipole moment points from negative to positive charge. Alright. So since dipole moment is multiplication of charge and the distance between the charges, so the unit of electric dipole can be said to be coulomb meter. This is the SI unit, right? And coming to the CGS unit of dipole moment, which is called as debye. You must have seen this unit much more in the chemistry topics, right? This unit is used much more frequently in the chemistry questions. In physics, you will encounter this rarely, but you should know this thing, right? So the value of 1 debye is how much? 3.33 into 10 to the power minus 30. All right, coulomb meter. Okay. Now, where do we observe dipoles in our day-to-day life? So the most common example of a dipole is the water molecule. Water molecule has got oxygen and two hydrogen atoms, correct? Now the electrons are attracted more towards the oxygen atom. So there's a net negative charge in the direction of oxygen and there's a net positive charge in the direction of hydrogen. So if this is minus 2e, actually not minus 2e, this would be minus 2q, then you have your plus q, you have your plus q, so that becomes your dipole. All right, and then the dipole moment for H2O will be pointing in this direction. Okay, similarly here you can see we have HCl molecule. So the chlorine has more affinity for electrons, so the chlorine side will be negative, hydrogen side will be positive, and therefore the dipole moment will be pointing in this direction. Any other example of dipole? Yes. See, when you take pieces of paper, when you bring the pieces of paper nearby a charged rod, if I take a plastic scale, rub it with my hair, and bring the scale close to the paper pieces, then what happens? The pieces become, paper molecules become polarized. The entire paper becomes polarized. It becomes a dipole. Okay. So, in practical life, the dipoles are actually encountered only in molecules. We don't encounter dipoles so much in large objects. So, since the dipoles are part of molecules, so the dipoles are in general very tiny. So, whatever formula we study for dipole, we apply them for the situation where the dipole is very small as compared to the distances. Okay, so we assume the size of the dipole is very small and we derive the formula accordingly. Alright, so let's solve one simple question over here first. So we've got two small dipoles AB and CD, each of dipole moment P. Okay, they are kept at an angle of 120 degree. So what is the resultant dipole moment of this combination? So one dipole is kept like this is your AB. Second dipole is kept like this is CD. So both have dipole moment P. The angle between them is 120 degrees. So find the resultant dipole moment. Very easy question. Just do vector addition. That's it. Try this. Come on. 30 seconds should be enough, but I'll give you 1 minute to solve this. Got the answer, I hope. Okay, so let's try. So this is my first dipole moment is P. This is my second dipole, this also is dipole moment P, and angle is 120. So when you find the resultant of the two dipoles, apply parallelogram law of vector addition. So this should be the resultant. And by symmetry, this angle should be 60 degrees. Now, you could solve this question using geometry, or you could apply the vector addition formula as well. So let's first try geometry. Okay. So first of all, look at this parallelogram. This angle is 120. This angle is also 120. Sum of all the four angles should be 360 degrees. Let's say this angle is theta, this angle is theta. So theta plus 120 plus theta plus 120 should be 360 degrees. Correct? So what do we get now? 2 theta should be equal to how much? 360 minus 240. So this is equal to how much? 120 degrees. So theta is how much? 120 by 2. So that will be 60 degrees. So theta is also 60. So now observe this triangle. This is 60. This is 60. This angle will also be 60 then, obviously. So you are getting an equilateral triangle. Right? That means this side and this side should have same magnitude. So the net dipole moment should be equal to P. Okay? So the net dipole moment will be equal to P. So this is one way of solving. Another way is obviously using the vector addition formula. Under root of P1 square plus P2 square plus 2 P1 P2 cos 120 degree. Put the value, you will get the same answer, P. Alright. Let's continue. Okay. So that's the answer. The resultant is P. Fine. Now one more question for you based on dipole. Again, this question is easy. There are no calculations involved. Just think. So two electric dipoles are placed near each other as shown. This is your dipole 1. This is your dipole 2. They will attract, repel, apply no force. Okay, that means they are not attracting or not repelling, or none of these. Which option is correct? So think over this. Easy question. I'll give you a hint. Replace the dipole with a magnet. Here I got one magnet. Here I got another magnet. And think what will happen. Yeah, it's very easy, right? So North Pole and South Pole are close to each other, right? So they will attract each other. Simple. Okay. So sometimes you get questions of these kinds where they just place the dipoles nearby and they ask you what force is acting. So this is all you have to do. Okay. If you might be asking, sir, this is based on magnet. How do we solve in terms of the electric charge? So that's very easy. So this is your first dipole. Okay. P1. Then I have my second dipole P2, and observe over here, positive and negative charge are close to each other. That means they will attract. Simple. Okay, that's it. Right. So let's go to the next concept. What happens when you're given multiple charges? If you are given two charges, one is plus q, one is minus q, dipole moment is qd. But what if there are more than two charges? In that case, how to find the dipole moment? So first thing, dipole moment is a vector, right? So we want the components of the vector. We want x component, we want y component. How do you find the components? So first of all, you find px, then you find py. The formula that you should use is this formula. If you have multiple charges, this is q1, this is q2, this is q3. Their coordinates are x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. So px can be found using simply q1 x1 plus q2 x2 plus q3 x3. Similarly, py can be found using q1 y1 plus q2 y2 plus q3 y3. The important point over here to note, sign of the charge is important. Let's say if q1 is minus 2 coulomb, then you should put over here minus 2. Don't put the mod value, okay? So then finally we can find a dipole moment like this. It will be equal to px I cap plus py j cap. That's it. Okay, easy formula. So try this question. This question can be actually solved in two different ways. I'll explain you both the ways, but first I want to see what's your answer. Px equal to q1 x1 plus q2 x2 plus q3 x3. Py equal to q1 y1 plus q2 y2 plus q3 y3. So find x1 x2 x3 y1 y2 y3. Solve it. Take this as the origin. Hmm. Okay, so let's try this. We have got three charges, right? Q, Q and minus 2Q. Okay, then this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. So the coordinate over here is 0 comma 0. Simple. Next, they have given that the side of the triangle is L. That means this side is equal to L. So what are the coordinates of this point? L comma 0. Okay. Now we just need to find the coordinates of this particular point. So your triangle is an equilateral triangle, right? That means this angle should be 60 degrees. Now let's drop a line over here. So what would be the height of this vertical line over here? This is L. This is 60. So this will be how much? L sine 60 degrees. Okay, this will be L sine 60 degrees. So that will be how much? L root 3 by 2. Similarly, what will be this length equal to? This will be L cos 60 degrees. So that will be L by 2. So now I found the coordinates of this point. Its x coordinate is L by 2 and y coordinate is L root 3 by 2. So L by 2 comma L root 3 by 2. I found the coordinates of all the 3 points and now I just need to put the values in the formula. So here I have Q charge and minus 2Q charge. So Px will be how much? Q1 x1 0. Q2 x2. So Q times L. Then Q3 x3. So minus 2Q times L by 2. So what do we get? QL minus QL. So what are we getting over here? We are getting 0. So the dipole moment has no x component. Let's now find the y component of dipole. Again P1 Q1 y1. So Q1 y1 which is 0. Q2 y2 again 0. Then Q3 and y3. So minus 2Q and L root 3 by 2. So what do I get over here? Minus QL root 3. Okay. Minus QL root 3 will be your dipole moment along y-axis. Along x-axis it is 0. So I get net dipole moment vector equal to Py j cap because Px is 0. So I get minus QL root 3 j cap. Simple. Okay. So this is your first method of solving this question. Now what's the second way to solve this? Let's see. So let's write down over here method 2. This is also very easy actually. So here I have got minus 2q charge, right? So I could divide that charge into two particles, minus q and minus q. Total is minus 2q, so I'm dividing it to minus q and minus q. Here I have got q charge, here I have got q charge. Then this is my dipole moment P1. So P1 will be how much? Q times L, because the distance over here is how much? Distance of the length of the side of the equilateral triangle. Okay, so this length is equal to L, so dipole moment is QL. Similarly, second dipole moment P2 will be how much? That will be again equal to QL, because the charge is Q and length is L. Now again, if I drop a vertical line, then by symmetry this angle is 30 degree, this angle is also 30 degree, correct? Both the angles are 30, and P1 P2 both are equal in magnitude, so their x component will cancel out. X component of P1 is in this direction, x component of P2 is in this direction. They are opposite to each other, so they cancel each other, simple. All right, y component of P1 is how much? P1 cos 30. So I'll write down over here P1y equal to P1 cos 30 degree, so that is QL root 3 by 2. Similarly, y component of P2 is how much? So this is P2, its y component will be P2 cos 30. So there will be P2 cos 30. So again QL root 3 by 2. Now P1y P2y, they are both in the same direction, right? So they are added together to obtain the net dipole moment. So P1y plus P2y. So when you add them together, you get QL root 3. Clear? And because the net dipole moment is in negative y direction, so I can write down net dipole moment vector equal to minus QL root 3 j cap. Okay, so we got the same answer as the previous case. All right, so these are the two ways in which you could solve the questions of multiple charges. Okay, okay, so let's jump to the next topic, which is the dipole behavior of dipole in external electric field. Actually right now we should write down uniform electric field. What happens in that case? So all of you know this formula already. Dipole in uniform electric field. What would happen? So if this is your dipole and this is your electric field E, and the angle between them is theta, then, although you already know, but I'll take a small time to explain this again once. So this is your dipole having negative charge, this is your dipole having positive charge. So the electric field will apply force on the positive charge in the same direction, correct? So here I get the force QE. Similarly, for the negative charge, force will be opposite to electric field. So the force over here will be minus QE, or some magnitude will be QE, direction will be opposite. So if you observe, this force and this force both have same magnitude but opposite direction, so they cancel each other. So the first point we can note is that net force is zero in uniform electric field. This is important. Okay, uniform electric field, we get net force 0. Then this is your distance d, this angle is theta, right? This angle is theta, so here also same angle is theta. Then the height over here will be how much? D sine theta. This is d, so the height over here will be d sine theta. All right, so this force and this force, they behave like a torque couple. So the torque is given by QE into d sine theta. Okay, so I can write down over here torque equal to QED sine theta. So that is equal to Q times D is the dipole moment. So PE sine theta. Okay. Now, how do you think will this torque be acting? Is it acting clockwise or anti-clockwise? What do you think? Easy. It's very easy concept, right? See, those who are confused regarding this concept, do a simple thing. Take a pen. You must be having a pen right now. Okay, so take this pen in your hand and try to pull the pen from this end like this. Why? Because the force is also acting in this direction. Okay, so pull the this end of the pen in this direction, pull this end of the pen in opposite direction, and observe what happens. If I pull like this, so the pen is rotating what? Clockwise. So the torque is also clockwise. That means the dipole will try to rotate in this direction. So dipole will try to align itself parallel to electric field. So that's my next point I should write down. Tries to align itself parallel to electric field. Okay. And in vector form I can write down torque is equal to P cross E vector. Simple. Okay. But we rarely use this form of the formula. We can just directly write down that the dipole tries to align parallel to E, so the torque will be acting towards E. Simple. Okay. So this is your first part. Then the next part we have is the potential energy of dipole. So potential energy of dipole in uniform electric field is given by minus P dot E, or that is equal to minus PE cos theta. Now the derivation for this formula is slightly lengthy, so I'm not going for that. You just can remember this formula, right? It's very easy. Okay, so these are the formula that you have to use when the dipole is placed in uniform electric field. Okay, right. So let's look at a question over here now. So what you can see, a electric dipole with dipole moment 4 into 10 power minus 9 coulomb meter. The C is actually small, it's a typing error. It's not centimeter, it's coulomb meter, right? This is a typing error. Okay, so the dipole is aligned at 30° with the electric field. So if this is your electric field E, then dipole is making 30° with the electric field. Okay, and electric field is given to be 5 into 10 power minus 4, sorry, 5 into 10 power plus 4 Newton per coulomb. So calculate the magnitude of the torque and what is the maximum possible torque. Try this. Put your answers in the chat. Fast. Speed is much important in case of JEE mains, right? So try to solve this as fast as possible. Yeah. Dipole moment is 4 into 10 power minus 9. Electric field is 5 into 10 power 4. Okay, so let me now try to solve this question. So this is your dipole moment. How much? 4 into 10 power minus 9 coulomb meter. And this is your electric field. 5 into 10 power 4 Newton per coulomb. Correct? The angle between them is 30°. So what is the torque now? PE sine 30°. Actually, I should write down sine theta first. So P is 4 into 10 power minus 9. Electric field is 5 into 10 power 4. And what is sine theta? In this case, theta is 30. So sine 30 will be 1 by 2. Right? So what do we get now? This will be equal to 10 into 10 power minus 5. So this is basically 10 power minus 4 Newton meter. This is your torque. Okay, easy formula, right? Now they are asking what is the maximum possible torque. See, observe over here. Look at this formula. This is your formula for torque. Now in this formula, we cannot change P. Right? We cannot change E, but we can rotate the dipole and change the angle theta. Correct? So torque is maximum when sine theta is maximum. Maximum value of sine theta is what? 1, right? So maximum torque maximum will be PE sine 90 degrees, so that is equal to PE. So this will basically, if you calculate, you get 2 into 10 power minus 4 Newton meter. Simple. Okay, good. So let's continue with the dipole, and now we want to find the field and potential at the axis of the dipole. What do you mean by axis? See, if this is your dipole, right, then the line along the dipole is the axis of dipole. Over here, this is your axis of dipole. All right. So dipole axis. Okay, so if this is your dipole, alright, dipole moment is P, and this is the axis of dipole. This is the axis of dipole. Alright, so at a distance x, the electric field is given by what? See, what is the formula for electric field? Kq by r square for a point charge, right? So here you write down K, instead of Q write down P, and divide by r square. Instead of r square put r cube. Simple. And also put a 2 over here. That's it. That's it. We found the formula for electric field. Okay. What about potential? So potential is given by Kq by r. So in this case, the potential V will be what? K, instead of Q write down P, divided by, instead of R write down R square. So if you observe something, electric field is Kq by R square, right, and potential is Kq by R. So here electric field becomes Kq by R cube, and here potential becomes Kp by R square. So instead of R square we have R cube for electric field, instead of R we have R square for potential. So just increase the power of R in the denominator. Simple. You can remember the formula now, right? So I'll keep this as a reference on the side. Okay, so this is your electric field and dipole moment, sorry, electric field and potential for the dipole, alright, on the axis. Next, we want to find the electric field and potential of dipole on the equatorial point. So again, equator of dipole. So again, let's draw the dipole first. So this is my dipole moment P, and the perpendicular bisector will become the equator of dipole. All right. So on the perpendicular bisector, electric field should be opposite to dipole. That means dipole is pointing in the right direction, so the electric field will be pointing in the left direction. Okay. And let's say that this height is y. So the electric field will be how much? Kp by y cube. Simple. Observe the formula once again. Here we have 2 kp by r cube. Here we have kp by y cube. Or I could just write down r everywhere to avoid confusion. Okay. Alright. Here we got 2 kp by r cube. So on the equator we get kp by r cube. Kp by r cube part is same. Just we have an extra factor of 2 in the axial electric field. Okay. Now coming to the potential formula. So potential over here is given by actually it will be 0. I'm sorry. Potential on the equator is 0. Why? If you remember, in the previous class we did one question where we had a negative q charge and a positive q charge. So the line was passing through the perpendicular bisector. There were 2 points B and D. So VB and VD came out to be equal to 0. Right? This is negative charge, this is positive charge, and both of them are equidistant from this point. So due to the negative charge, potential will be kq by r with a minus sign. So minus kq by r. Due to the positive charge, potential will be plus kq by r. So when you add them together, you get the total dipole moment to be, total potential to be 0. Alright. So on the equatorial plane, this is the electric field, this is the potential. Right. So one more thing we can note down is that equatorial plane. What do you mean by plane? About this line, take a sheet, take a paper perpendicular to the screen. Okay, take a paper perpendicular to the screen. That is the equatorial plane. So this equatorial plane is equipotential surface. Alright. With potential 0. So starting from this point and all the way up to infinity, the potential remains 0. Is that clear? Good. Now solve this question. So find the potential due to short dipoles of dipole moment 4.5 into 10 to the power minus 10 coulomb meter at a distance 1 meter from it on the axis and on its perpendicular bisector. You can solve this question now. It's very easy. What do you think? Apply the formula. They're asking the dipole moment. Sorry, they're asking the electric potential. On the axis, potential is Kp by r square. And on the perpendicular bisector, you know the answer. Okay, so for that question, on axis, potential will be how much? Kp by r square. So k is how much? 9 into 10 power 9. Dipole moment P is how much? 4.5 into 10 power minus 10. Right? And distance is 1 meter. So divide by 1 square. So what do we get from here now? So this is 9 into 9 by 2, 81 by 2. So that is 40.5 into 10 to the power minus 1. So this is 4.05 volt. Simple. Okay. So this is the potential on the axis. And what about on the equator? On the perpendicular bisector? This will be 0. Okay. Right. Very good. Let's continue to the next question now. Next topic actually. So now we want to find the electric field and potential of dipole at any random point. So this is actually not so difficult. Some people find it difficult, but just pay attention once again. So we want to find the electric field and potential at any random point around a dipole. So let's say this is my dipole P. I want to find, this is my distance R. Okay. And at this point I want to find the electric field and the potential. Let's say this angle over here is theta. How to solve this question? That's very easy actually. So first of all, divide the dipole into two components. See, dipole is a vector, right? So you can divide this vector into two components. One component will be in this direction, another component will be in the perpendicular direction, right? So let's draw these components. So the component in this direction will be how much? This will be P cos theta. And the component in the other direction will be how much? This will be P sin theta. I hope everyone is clear with this concept. If you're confused, it's simple logic. The component adjacent to the angle is cos component. Alright. And the component in the other direction is always the sine component. One is cos, one is sine. So the component adjacent to theta is cos theta. Okay. Good. Now, think of them as two different dipoles. These two components are two separate dipoles. Alright. So first of all, due to this dipole, what is the electric field at this point? So the electric field will be, what is the formula for electric field on the axis? it is equal to 2kp by r cube, right? So 2k, we have p cos theta divided by r cube. Okay, this dipole will create this much field in this direction, making angle theta with the horizontal. Then what about this dipole? So this will create electric field in opposite direction. Dipole is pointing in this direction, so the electric field will be in opposite direction. So this electric field will be how much? Let me use another color. This will be like this. Okay, and obviously the angle will be 90 degrees. So what is the value? So on the equator, electric field is kp by r cube. This line is the equator for this pink colored dipole. So the electric field will be kp sine theta divided by r cube. Okay. Alright, so we found the two components of the electric field. Now finding the net field is easy. These two components are perpendicular to each other. So you can find the resultant like this. Easy. Okay. So the resultant will be root of square of this field plus square of this field. Okay. But generally difficult questions are not asked based on this concept, so no need to worry so much. They will ask you something where the calculation is easy. For example, the resultant of these two should become vertical. That is, x component of this field and x component of this field, they should cancel out. This is what generally happens. Okay. Then what about the potential? So potential due to p cos theta will be how much? On the axis, due to p cos theta, potential is what? Kp by r square. So here we get kp cos theta by r square. And what about p sine theta? So due to p sine theta, what should we do? This line is the equator for p sine theta. So on the equator, potential is 0. So V2 will be 0. So total potential will be how much? Kp cos theta by r square. Simple. So the formula is very easy to derive. You don't even need to remember this formula. Alright. You just need to remember the formula for axis and equator. Then deriving the formula for random point is easy. Okay. So that's it. This is how we solve the problems related to dipole. Alright. Now another very important topic. Dipole placed in non-uniform electric field. In this case, what happens? In uniform electric field, the dipole does not experience any force. But in case of non-uniform electric field, what will happen? See, a small hint is there for you. Your electric field is pointing in this direction. Okay. This is positive charge. This is negative charge. Okay. Now the electric field is non-uniform. That means what? At this point, electric field is E1. At this point, electric field is E2. And E1 is not equal to E2. Okay. So, force on positive charge will be QE1. Force on negative charge will be what? QE2. Okay. So, QE1 is not equal to QE2. So, in this case, the net force on the dipole is not 0. Clear? This is very important. Alright. So, let's try to derive the formula for electric force for a dipole in non-uniform electric field. So dipole in non-uniform electric field, what will happen? So let's say your electric field is like this, E. Okay. Now dipole is very small, remember that. So if this is my negative charge, this is my positive charge, then the distance between the two charges is very small. So let's call this small distance as dx. Okay, right? In integration we use the term dx, so this is same dx, small distance. Okay. Now electric field at this location is E, but since electric field is non-uniform, so at this point it will increase to E plus dE. Okay. Now Due to this electric field, force on the negative charge will be how much? The force on the negative charge will be in opposite direction, QE. Due to this electric field, force on positive charge will be how much? This will be equal to Q times E plus DE. Now find the net force. So net force will be how much? Subtract the two of them because they are in opposite direction, right? So Q times E plus DE minus QE. So I am getting Q times DE. So what if I multiply and divide dx? It doesn't make any difference, right? So I can now combine them together. So Q dx is on one side, then on the other side I get dE by dx. Okay. So what is Q dx equal to? Charge into distance between the charges. Dx is what? Distance between the charges, right? So this term is your electric dipole moment, right? This term is your electric dipole moment. So I get net force will be equal to P dE by dx. This is the formula that you have to use in case of dipole. Okay. So let's look at a question. So the force between two short electric dipoles placed on the same axis at a distance r varies as. So the question is saying that we have one dipole P1, another dipole P2. The distance between them is r. So we have to find the formula for the force between the dipoles, and then we have to check it is proportional to one of these options. Okay. Try to solve this question. See, I'll give you a hint. Find the electric field due to P1. What is the electric field due to P1? 2k P1 by R cube. Now differentiate E1. Force is what? P times dE by dx, right? So differentiate E1 with R and multiply P2. Simple. Try this now. It's very easy. Try this. So let me try to solve now. So I have got P1 over here. So due to P1, what is the electric field at distance r on its axis? Electric field is given by 2k P1 by r cube. So dE by dr will be how much? This will be 2k P1 times d by dr of r power minus 3. You know how to solve this thing, right? So I should get over here minus 2k P1 times 3 by r power 4. Okay. So this is minus 6k P1 by r power 4. Alright. Now, when I place two dipoles next to each other like this. So in this case, what is the force now? So force experienced by P2 due to P1 will be how much? So this F will be equal to P2 times dE by dr. So this is equal to minus 6k P1 P2 by r power 4. Okay. Easy, right? This is very easy to calculate. Now, one important thing to observe. Look at the sign over here. The force is negative. Why? Because I have taken the direction wrong. The force will be actually in this direction. So let me change that. Force will be acting in opposite direction. Remember, we have solved one question where I have kept two dipoles next to each other, and the answer that we got was that the two dipoles attract each other, right? Let me take you back to that question. Yeah, look at this. So what was the answer to this question? The two dipoles attract each other. So here also we are getting the same result. The two dipoles will attract each other in this situation. Okay. But the question was asking what is F proportional to. So F is proportional to 1 by R power 4 or R power minus 4. Okay. So in the question that we just discussed, we will mark option D as the correct answer. Okay. Great. So now let's jump to the electric flux and Gauss law. All of you know what is electric flux and what is Gauss law, but we will do some important, we will revise some important topics. Okay. So first of all, what is electric flux? When electric field is crossing any surface, then flux is created through that surface. Okay. How do we calculate the flux? Find the see. Suppose this is your electric field, right? And this is your surface. So find the component of electric field perpendicular to the surface. Then multiply with area. Okay. So this component is what? E cos theta. And when you multiply with area, you get EA cos theta, simple. Okay. That's all you have to do in case of electric flux. Now there is some sign convention for the closed surfaces. So when you're closed surface, right? Suppose I close my hands like this. So now there's a space inside my hands, right? So this is a closed surface. Okay. So in case of closed surface, if field is coming outwards, we take flux as positive. Look at this electric field line. From this point, the field is coming out of the surface, right? At this point, field is coming out of the surface. So over here, flux will be positive. Okay. Next, field going inwards, flux is negative. Observe this point now. So here the field is going inside the surface. So then you get negative flux. So at this point flux will be negative. Okay. Then finally if field is going tangential, we get zero flux. That's obvious, right? Why? Because flux is given by EA cos theta. We want component of electric field perpendicular to surface. So if field is parallel to surface, tangential to surface, there's no component in the perpendicular direction. So flux will be zero. Is that clear? Okay. For example, in this case, you are getting zero flux because the electric field is parallel to the surface. Okay. Great. Then we come to the Gauss law. So what is the Gauss law? Gauss law says that the total electric flux for a closed surface is given by Q divided by epsilon naught, where Q is what? The total charge inside the Gaussian surface. Okay, great. So here we have a very simple question for you. A point charge Q is placed at the center of a cube. The total flux through any one phase of the cube is how much? So for example, I want to find the flux through this face of the cube. So what should be the flux now? You know the answer. Charge is exactly at the center, so we have symmetry. So each face of the cube has exactly same amount of flux. Think, answer this. Okay, then let me try now. Alright. So total flux through the cube is how much? Phi will be, sorry, it's capital Q, right? So capital Q by epsilon naught. Now, by symmetry. By symmetry, each face should have same flux. So there, how many faces are there on a cube? So six faces are there. So 6 times flux through one face should be equal to the total flux. Correct. So total flux is how much? Q by epsilon naught. So this is equal to Q by epsilon naught. So flux through one phase will be how much? Will be Q by 6 epsilon naught. Simple. Okay. Great. Now try this question. So here we have got electric field given by ax square plus b by 2. And here you can see we got a cube now. From the origin, the distance of the cube is equal to a. The side of the cube is also equal to a. Okay. Electric field is only along x-axis. Electric field is only along x-axis. So we have to find the total charge inside this cube. Think it's very easy question actually. Okay, try this once. Tell me the answer. I have not given you any options for this question because I want you to solve some subjective questions. Okay, try. Find the flux through each face of the cube, and there you will get the answer. Let me give you some hints. So your electric field is towards x-axis, right? But the electric field is dependent on the x coordinate. So at every point, electric field will have a different value. So for example, over here, let's say electric field is E1. Over here, let's say electric field is E2. Okay. Now, first of all, let's talk about this surface over here. What about the surface? Electric field is parallel to the surface. So the flux for this face will be 0. Okay. Similarly, observe this face also. So in this case also, electric field is parallel to surface, right? So again for this surface, flux is 0. Similarly for the bottom face, here also electric field is parallel to the surface, so flux will be 0. For the face on the back side, here also same thing, electric field is parallel to the surface, so flux will be 0. So we can have flux only through this face, okay, and this face over here. Alright. Here electric field is going into the plane, inside the box, so flux is negative. Okay, so phi1 will be negative. So I'll write down minus E1 into area. So what is the area of the square face? Obviously a square. So I'll write down over here a square. Similarly, for this face, electric field is coming out. So flux will be positive. So phi2 will be E2 times a square. Now just find the value of E1 and E2 and your question is solved. Okay. So first of all, how to find E1? So E1 is acting at a distance of a from the origin. So in this formula, put x equal to a. So what is E1 equal to? Ax square. So that is a square plus b by 2. Right. So this is equal to a cube plus b by 2. What about E2? So E2 is a times. Now this distance is a. Correct. Plus this is also a. So the total distance will be how much? 2a. So for this face, x coordinate equal to 2a. Let me write that down over here. x1 equal to a, x2 equal to 2a. Okay. So here I'll write down 2a whole square plus b by 2. So I'm getting 2a cube plus b by 2. Okay. Now the net flux will be how much? So net flux will be phi 2 minus phi 1. Actually phi 2 plus phi 1 I should write down. Phi 1 is itself negative. So this is e2 a square minus e1 a square. So this is equal to a square e2 minus e1. So subtract e2 and e1, what do you get? B by 2 will cancel out. 2a cube minus a cube will be a cube. So I get over here a square into a cube, so that is a power 5. Okay, I found the flux. Now flux is equal to what according to Gauss law? Q inside by epsilon naught, correct? So a power 5 is equal to Q inside by epsilon naught. So charge inside the cube will be how much? That will be equal to epsilon naught a power 5. Okay, great. So that's your answer for this question. Let's move on to the next topic, that is application of Gauss law for different geometries. So first of all, we have got shell theorem. What is shell theorem? It's very easy. If you got a spherical shell with uniform charge on its surface, then outside the shell electric field will be kq by r square. Outside the shell behaves like a point charge. Okay, so here my electric field will be kq by r square, just like a point charge. The formula for point charge is applicable over here. Okay, then for any point inside the shell behaves like a, sorry, ignore this point. Okay, ignore this point. For any point inside the shell, simply electric field will be 0. Okay, so inside this cavity over here we have 0 electric field. Clear? Let me just correct this last sentence. Okay, so for any point inside the shell, electric field will be 0. Outside the shell behaves like point charge. Inside the shell, field is 0. Okay, then so now if you look at the graph for the electric field of a shell, so inside the shell electric field is 0. So from 0 to r, the graph remains 0 horizontal, right? E is 0. Then beyond that, the graph is proportional to 1 by r square, because E equal to kq by r square. Simple. Okay, great. Now what about field due to a solid sphere? So just like the hollow sphere, the solid sphere can be also treated like a point charge, correct? So for any point outside the shell, the sphere behaves like a point charge. All of this can be proved easily using Gauss theorem. If you take a spherical Gaussian surface, then by symmetry the electric field will come out to be kq by r square. But we are not going into the derivation right now. We are just directly looking at the final formula. Okay, so the sphere also behaves like a point charge when you are outside the sphere. Okay, now what about when you are inside the solid sphere? So the solid sphere can be treated like it is made up of several layers, just like an onion. Okay, you can treat the solid sphere as if it is made up of multiple layers. Alright, so in that case what will happen? Let's understand this thing. Okay, so this is my solid sphere, correct? Now I can divide the solid sphere into two regions. Okay, suppose I want to find the electric field inside the solid sphere at this point. The radius of the sphere is capital R. I want to find the electric field at distance small r from the center. So how do I find the electric field? Easy. Divide the sphere into two sections. So here is my inner part of the sphere, right? Let's highlight this. Okay. So now I have a shell which is outside that point and I have a sphere which is inside that point. Okay, so when you apply shell theorem, so the outer shell creates no electric field at the point. Simple. Because when you are inside a shell, there is no electric field. So the shell, this outer shell cannot create any electric field at this point. Correct? Now only the inner sphere will create the electric field, and that field will be equal to how much? So for that, first of all, inner sphere has charge small q. So first of all, I need to find the value of small q. How do I do that? That's very easy. So small q will be equal to density into volume. Okay. What is density? The density of this entire sphere is how much? Total charge by total volume. 4 by 3 pi capital R cube. Right. Total charge of the sphere is capital Q. Total volume of the sphere is how much? 4 by 3 capital R cube. But what is the volume of this inner sphere? 4 by 3 pi small r cube. So then I get q equal to q r cube by r cube. Okay. So now I can find the field very easily. This is equal to kq by r square. Or when I put the value of small q, when I put the value of small q over here, so what do I get? kqr by r cube. So electric field is proportional to r when r is less than equal to capital R. So inside the solid sphere, electric field increases linearly. Outside the solid sphere, it again goes like a curved graph, correct? So when you look at the graph, so this will become your graph for a solid sphere, right? First you are getting a straight line, okay, and then you are getting a curve because electric field is proportional to 1 by r square. Simple. Okay, so that's how you solve the cases of a hollow sphere and a solid sphere. All right. Now let's look at one very important question in case of solid spheres. So here you got a sphere. Okay, this is a solid sphere with a cavity inside it. That is, there's an entire solid sphere, but inside there's a spherical hole, a spherical cavity. Okay, so the radius of the bigger sphere is b. The distance between these two centers is capital R, and the radius of the cavity is a. Okay, now they're asking the electric field inside the cavity. Now most of you know the answer to this question. Electric field inside the cavity is uniform. Okay, so I will not go into the entire derivation because that's very lengthy. I'll just tell you the trick to remember the formula for these types. What if this question is asked in the exam? You can't, if you don't remember the formula, then that's it, you can't solve the question. So I'll tell you a trick how you can solve this question very easily. Pay attention. Just a second, guys. So this is my sphere. Okay, now what is the trick to solve this type of question? See, you might be familiar with the derivation of this question, but obviously if you don't remember the formula, how will you solve this question in the exam? The derivation will waste a lot of your time. So the trick that we can use over here is that uh, find field at center of cavity, assuming there is no cavity. Simple. Okay, assuming there is no cavity. Let me explain. See, first of all, focus on this sentence. Assuming there is no cavity. If there is no cavity, then I have got an entire solid sphere, correct? So let me draw that over here. So this is my entire solid sphere. Alright. Let me fill that with some color. That's it. Okay, so this is the sphere without a cavity. Now let's identify this point inside this sphere. So This distance is B, correct? This distance is R, alright? Fine. Now at this point, what is the formula for the electric field we have just discussed? Inside a solid sphere, the electric field is given by KQR by R cube. So here also I could put the same thing. Here my electric field will be in this direction, given by KQ R by B cube. Don't get confused. The radius of the entire sphere is now given B, so that should go in denominator. And the distance of this point from the center is capital R, so that should go in the numerator. Okay, no need to be confused, it's just variables, they are getting changed, nothing else. So this is your electric field in this direction having this magnitude. So that's my first point, find the field at the center of cavity. Then what's the second point? We get uniform field inside cavity equal to the vector from point 1. Okay, this is your point 1, right? So using point 1 I found this electric field. Oops. Okay, using the point 1 I found this electric field. Okay, so inside the cavity everywhere electric field will be uniform. Okay, so let me draw that again. Okay, so here if you observe, my electric field will be like this. Everywhere it will be equal to KQR, sorry, capital R by B cube, simple. Okay, so we are getting a uniform electric field given by this simple trick that you can apply during the exam. Okay, so that's it. Okay, right. Now one last application based on Gauss law. So this one. So what about a straight infinite wire? What is the electric field due to the infinite wire? So that's very easy. By symmetry, the electric field should be like this, perpendicular to the wire, correct? And now we are taking this cylindrical Gaussian surface. Okay, and all of you know then the formula how we calculate. For this flat surface, flux will be 0. For the bottom flat surface, again the flux will be 0. So my electric field will be how much? So as you can see, the flux will be only through the curved surface, and the curved surface is having area how much? What is the area for curved surface of a cylinder? 2 pi r into height h. Height h is given. So flux will be how much? Electric field times 2 pi rh, and that should be equal to q inside by epsilon naught. So q inside is how much? Linear charge density lambda. Okay, linear charge density lambda, that means charge per unit length multiplied by this height h. This is the charge that is inside the cylinder. So lambda into h divided by epsilon naught. So when you solve this, you get lambda by 2 pi epsilon naught r, or 2 lambda by 4 pi epsilon naught r, or 2k, sorry, 2k lambda by r. This is your formula for electric field due to infinite wire. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. We have discussed electric dipole, we have discussed Gauss law. Okay, so I hope you learned a lot from these topics. Okay, practice a lot, revise all these things, do the derivations once again yourself, and do practice. Okay, so that's it. I hope all of you joined the Telegram group. If you haven't joined, you can scan this QR code over here and join it now itself. Okay, otherwise you can follow this link given on the upper right corner. Okay, and either way, join the group. You can discuss live with us, you can have direct chat with us, and you will get any update from Topper instantly. All right, so that's it for today, guys. Bye bye, take care. Okay.